The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. I'm Liz Purnell, an Education and Training Specialist with the Institute of Child Nutrition, formerly the National Food Service Management Institute, or NFSMI, as many of you may know it. And I would like to welcome you to the Team Up Thursdays webinar on Procurement in Practice. The Institute of Child Nutrition, along with its Applied Research Division, has collaborated with USDA to develop Team Up for School Nutrition Success, which is a unique learning experience that serves to enhance school food operations by providing tailored technical assistance to school nutrition programs that want to maintain a healthy environment and student meal program participation. As a follow-up to our pilot workshop last year, we have launched a monthly webinar series as a platform to further enhance partnerships and to provide an opportunity to all school nutrition professionals to discuss issues and provide solutions and best practices districts are using in key areas. ICN has created a website that will feature all materials and resources specifically related to Team Up. You can find the information at www.theicn.org/teamup. Today's webinar will feature several school nutrition experts who will discuss best practices related to procurement, group purchasing, and forming co-ops to procure lower sodium products. In addition, our panelists from USDA will provide an overview of their sodium reduction initiative called What's Shaking? Creative Ways to Boost Flavor with Less Sodium, and they will be sharing resources for school nutrition professionals. Now I will briefly introduce our panelists and we will get started. Carol Chong is with us today. She is the National Nutrition Advisor for the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. Our second panelist is James Keaton. He is the Executive Director of the Department of School Nutrition Services for Durham Public Schools in Durham, North Carolina. We also have Gay Anderson, who is the Director of Child Nutrition for Brandon Valley School District in Brandon, South Dakota. And last but not least, we have Jennifer Carlson and Deborah Eisenbarth, both from USDA, who are nutritionists with the Nutrition Promotion and Technical Assistant Division of FNS, Child Nutrition Programs, who will discuss What's Shaking, USDA's new sodium reduction initiative. And I would also like to introduce some additional guests that we have standing by. We have Sandra Foss and Courtney Howder, who are both program analysts with USDA Food and Nutrition Service, Child Nutrition Programs, Program Monitoring and Operational Support Division. They will be able to assist with, as needed, with procurement discussions. During today's webinar, all attendees are muted. Each presenter will have about 5 minutes to address questions following their respective presentations. If you have a question, please type it into the question box and address the panelist by using their name when inquiring about a topic or issue. Now, Carol, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you. And I am so happy to be here. Today, in talking about procurement in practice, we're going to really focus on some of the things that I learned with, my slides are not moving forward. Tom, I don't know what's happening here.
Carol, click the slide, and then you should be able to move forward. Click
okay,
the slide.
Great, thank you.
There you go.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. So I'm going to really be giving you some of my experience in how I really learned about procurement as I kind of dove in, probably head first rather than feet first, in my role prior to me joining the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. But quickly, for those of you who do not know about the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, we are primarily working in schools, but also with industry and in the healthcare arena to impact children's health and the environment, and especially to reduce the prevalence of obesity in children. One of the areas that I work with in schools and industry is procurement and how to get the biggest bang for the buck in product quality, cost, and of course with consideration of effects on the environment. And incidentally, the Alliance for Healthier Generation recently formed a partnership with the Urban School Food Alliance, which consists of some of the largest districts in the United States, to move the needle in this direction. So when I bring my experiences on procurement, I want to really talk about what I learned. The what, the why, and the when for purchasing in schools and the requirements to comply with. And this was not 100% different than what I knew about procurement before, but certainly meeting regulations and compliance is first and foremost. So what I learned is that this is a multi-step approach for obtaining goods, products, and or services at the best possible pricing. But not only that, we wanted to ensure that we satisfied the customer's wants and needs to drive successes in your business, namely school nutrition. And of course, though there's not a huge focus on profit and loss, up front, there's always that underlying business aspect that directors definitely have to consider. And so sometimes school nutrition services need to look at the way they're doing business and change the way they're doing business in terms of, especially how funding has decreased and being looked at as a profitable business. In addition, the food market is much more competitive. And the customers, our students, are more savvy about food and nutrition than possibly we were when we were their age. Thinking about the why, proper planning is worthwhile and critical to ensure sufficient time, resources, and due diligence is applied. And of course, doing that in a systematic approach, which is the minimum requirements set forth by the USDA that governs the school meal programs, and then ensuring that any state and or local requirements be added for consideration and compliance as well. The when really is the identification of the needs of the district with enough time to explore all options. So when you think about the principles that are applied, you want to be sure that there's competition, there's integrity, and of course the vendors that should be responsive and responsible. Competition secures the best price for the quality of product or service. This allows companies to differentiate between services, their pricing, and how innovative they are. The fairness and the integrity actually gives a level playing field to everyone. And so they all have the same opportunity to compete. Procurement procedures may never unjustifiably restrict or eliminate competition. In fact, more competition may bring more effective results. The accountability due to regulations, but also being open and fair in terms of accountability to our taxpayers, to our employees, and to our customers. We need to be transparent. We need to be open and ethical. What does that really mean? Well, we shouldn't show or have favorites. Well, there should be no partiality or conflict of interest with vendors and or brands. Confidentiality. There was something called the cone of silence in a district that I worked in. Once a bid was on the street, so to speak, is that you couldn't talk about it to anyone, even within your district, unless it was in the procurement department, because you want to be sure that that confidentiality is preserved. And then, of course, the vendors must be eligible, willing, and able. And eligibility depends on everything that is written into your standard contract. What does your district require? What are the expectations? What are the vendor requirements that you need to service your contract and your district? And then consideration of the Buy American provision, which, as USDA puts it, to the maximum extent practicable, domestic commodities or products for use in meals served under the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program should be American. The legislation defines domestic commodity or product as one that is produced in the United States and is processed in the United States, substantially using agricultural commodities that are produced in the United States. The report accompanying the legislation stipulated substantially means over 51% of the final processed product consists of agricultural commodities that were grown domestically in the United States. The provision should be included in bid specifications to ensure compliance. So how do we do this? Well, the menu and your recipes are the heart of your program, especially with regard to your financial success. The menu drives your participation. If your customers don't like your menu, they're not going to participate. And of course, the more participation, the more revenue. And therefore, decisions for purchasing should really be focused from the menu. Consideration of the type of products, non-food products, should also be involved in your whole procurement process. For example, what kind of tray are you going to use? What kind of supplies or containers do you need to serve up your menu items? Are your food products dry, fresh, frozen? Are they USDA foods? Are they purchased items that are you're buying to complement and complete the menu? What about recipes? Do you have quantity recipes that are standardized, i.e. tried and tested, and more importantly, student approved? Purchasing items and for your recipes and your menus, we need to be sure that we will not only comply with the nutritional integrity as per the regulations, but also that it meets the students' approvals. So when you think about the menu, and I said that it drives all your purchasing decisions, the menu should be offering the items that your customers or students want to eat. Ultimately, this affects the success of your program. Menu should be appealing to your customers, not to the adults. My rule when I was in the position of procurement and menu planning, it didn't matter what I liked or what the adults who tasted products liked. It is the student approval that garnered my support and my progression to seeking procurement. So if vendors brought in items that they were selling, and they I even showed some liking, and they got all excited, I says, please don't get excited. We haven't tested it with our students. In addition, your menu should meet the regulations and guidelines for nutrition content and cost. Using USDA foods, whether directly or diverted, contribute efficiencies. Just-in-time production, for example, is a consideration of diverting USDA foods. Storage and distribution is another big consideration for procurement. Variety and product specifications. What you specify is what you're going to get. So be sure that you specify what you want. How about local products? How can you support your community businesses? And what products are available locally? You need to ensure that you do your due diligence to find out, because most often local can supplement your menu costs and drive down those numbers. Defining what you mean by local is also important, whether it's local is your state, local is your county, but defining that is going to be very helpful also in supporting your community. And then purchased foods, as I said before, should be complementing your menu and your USDA products to enhance menu items and recipes. So that brings us to recipes. They should be standardized, tried and tested. In addition, thinking about staffing, we must consider, can the staff prepare it? What kind of training do they need? What about equipment and storage? How is that going to affect the recipes? And when we do menu planning, thinking about, is everything on the menu for Tuesday needing to use the convection ovens? And so that's not a good balance for staffing as well as equipment. And of course, the recipes, standardized, must also meet the nutritional integrity and comply with the requirements for nutrition. So when we think about products and specifications, we need to identify what we want, the quality. State the quality you desire, whether it's USDA grades, you want it fresh, you want it frozen, or you want it IQF. Exactly how do you want it? What is the cost associated with your quality specifications? Comparisons for cost effectiveness. For example, how cost effective is it to use fresh versus dry herbs? Maybe the fresh herbs should be a school gardening project. So also thinking about customized products. How effective and efficient will these be? Will these meet your customer approvals? Are they competitive in the marketplace? For example, lower sodium turkey breast, for example, looks fresh, tastes homemade, not store-bought. However, what is the cost effectiveness of that? Maybe using complementary products for flavors. How about other products that might complement your menu and complete your meal? So at this point, I'll take questions before we move on to other panelists. Remember, if you have a question, to please type it into the chat box. Well, seeing no questions, I'll hand it over now to James.
Thank you, Carol. Hi, good afternoon. This is James Keaton from Durham Public Schools in Durham, North Carolina. I would like to take time to talk about some of the things that Carol mentioned. One of the important things that Carol mentioned was menus. Product selection is a very important aspect of menus. You need to have the products available to meet the menus that you've chosen. The three important things to look at in product selection are: what are your menus? What is your marketplace? And how are you going to purchase these items? For our menu, we need to know what's needed. First of all, the menu drives the products that you're going to select. So it's very important that you have your menu planned in advance. We utilize a full-week menu cycle that allows us the opportunity to use the same products over the course of the full-week cycle. While you're creating that menu, it's important to look at the actual menu items you're choosing. Are there products that you can use in more than one recipe? For instance, if you're bringing in tomato paste and only going to use one can in a recipe, you don't want to wait another 4 weeks to use that can again. Look for items that you can use several times in recipes. Can you use it in baked spaghetti? Can you use it in a chicken pasta bake? Can you use it in a meatball hoagie recipe? Look for products on your menu that can be used repeatedly to reduce your inventory costs. When you're looking at your menu, you need to look at the specifications for each product that you're purchasing. What are the nutritional contents? Are they low sugar? Are they reduced sodium? Are they low fat? Do they meet the needs to be compliant with the nutritional standards as set by USDA? The specifications will help you decide which items to purchase. You also need to look at the product types. Are you going to use fresh, frozen, or canned? Depending upon your needs, your storage, as Carol stated, you will also need to make those decisions. Maybe frozen broccoli is good for one product, but fresh is good for another. Looking at the marketplace and what's available. First, you need to know what is available. It's very important as a director that you continue to look at the market, not only in the child nutrition industry, but also in the fast food industry, in other stores and things where your customer base goes to. If your students are going to convenience stores, you need to see what they're getting there that they like so much. Is it something we can replicate? Look at the overall marketplace, not just what's available from your vendors. How much will it cost? You need to decide, is this something that is economically feasible? Can I do this on my menus? Can I afford it? What are the labor costs? What are the storage costs? What are the delivery costs? Everything needs to be taken into consideration. The marketplace is a very important part of what you're looking at. You can do market basket researches where you visit restaurants, try different menu items, look at the latest trends, see what everyone else is doing. Then it's time to purchase. How do I get what I need? If you have a current bid system, that's a great place to start. Look at the bid specifications that you currently have. Do they meet what you need? Have your needs changed? Do you need to write new specifications? Go out there on the internet and pull up bids from other districts, other states. In North Carolina, we're very fortunate to have the North Carolina Child Nutrition Procurement Alliance, which has approximately 98 districts that join together to do their purchasing. We create one bid document for the entire 98 districts. This gives us tremendous purchasing power. We can go out to vendors and say, instead of I want 50 cases for my district, we want 40,000 cases for the state. That gives you tremendous power. It also gives you an opportunity to work together as districts to see what recipes you can share, what ideas you can share. It also gives you input into how to write the specifications. And while you're writing these specifications, remember you must remain compliant with federal regulations as well as your overall objectives. You need to make sure that you're purchasing what you need to complete the menu. Some of the items that we use in Durham Public Schools in order to meet the menu are low-sodium products that really help our recipes. We offer a lot with soups and beans. These are great staples of commodity products that USDA provides, as well as food service vendors. Soup products are tremendous. Kids like them, especially in this region when it's cold. But you can beef those up. Put beans in your soup. It gives a little bit texture difference. It adds some protein, gives a different flavor profile. It can really add some oomph to your soups. When you're working with your beans, what can you do to beans? They're not really all that exciting. You can put in things like diced onions, a can of salsa, some corn. Throw in some mixed beans. Throw in pintos and black beans and kidney beans and great northern beans together and see what you come up with. You'll be surprised at the variety you can come up with by just being creative. Particularly with pinto beans, we've learned that by putting in some fajita seasoning and a little bit of salsa and calling them fiesta beans, the kids love them. So just look at what you have on hand and how you can doctor that. So you might have pinto beans on one week, you have fiesta beans on the next week. You're using the same products. You're able to reduce your costs. Tomato products are another tremendous thing to use. Using tomato sauces, tomato paste, tomato puree, diced tomatoes, there's a great versatility there. Doctoring each one up with things like salt-free Italian seasoning, salt-free Creole blend, oregano, chili, crushed red pepper, you can make different flavor profiles from using these 4 ingredients. They can also add texture, color, and bulk to some of your recipes. As I said, with beans, you throw in some salsa, you've really given it a lot of color, the texture has changed, you've bulked it up a little with some onions and some salsa, and it really gives more bulk to the meal. Tomato products, you need to be sure, as you're making them, that they taste good, their acceptability, and that they perform well. You want the customer to approve and accept what you're giving them. Your recipes will really need to be tested. You can't just create a recipe and throw it out there, particularly working with purees, tomato paste, and things like that. The texture will change with every recipe change you make. The final category we use are bases, herbs, and spices. As a district, we try to remain ever vigilant with people who choose not to eat meat products. So in all of our vegetables, we use a low-sodium vegetable base. This helps flavor the vegetables without adding any additional fat, but it also limits the sodium going in, and it allows those vegetables to remain truly vegetarian for the people who choose that. We also use mixes. There are great mixes out there. There's a chili mix, an enchilada mix, a spaghetti mix, a sloppy joe mix. These are just herb mixes that dump directly into your products and can really change the flavor profile. Simple things like ground mustard can make a great difference to your beans. White pepper, black pepper, no additional sodium there, but great flavor. Chili powder, red pepper, crushed red pepper, things like that can really help your flavor profiles. And I think it's important that you go back to your students, as Carol said, and find out, are they accepting what you're making? Student surveys are a great way to get that feedback. And I'd like to open it up now for any questions. Yeah, see one question here. Do you suggest a threshold or a number of served for menu items when trying to create a menu that is participation driven? If so, what would an average threshold be? I think it would be dependent upon your district size. We currently have 32,000 students. So when we're looking for a menu item, particularly our elementary schools, we know we're going to be serving around 450 to 500 students at each elementary school, and we offer 2 entrees per day. So we estimate probably 50% will eat that entree. So we look at a threshold of, will 250 kids in the school eat that item? So we'll sample it with the students, and if we get a great response, then we'll know that's a good item for us. And if it's a poor response, then we know that that's not an item that's going to drive our participation. However, there may be items that you just have to have on. Under the regulations, you have to have your legumes on. And the kids may not like the legumes no matter what you do to them. But the more things you try, the better it gives you an opportunity. You might be able to increase participation on the legumes from 10% of the kids eating them to 20% by doctoring them up. Another question, are your bid documents available for other districts to look at as a sample? I would have to get back to you on that, but I believe they are. As most program items are, they're federal documents. We do send them out to all the vendors in order for them to bid, so I believe they would be available for other districts to look at. The North Carolina Procurement Alliance would make that decision, but I'm sure it's available. Are there any other questions? Give you one more minute to make any last questions. Okay, having no other questions, I'll turn it over to Gay.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to share with you a little bit about how we put procurement into practice at this point in time. And so how it all began, and now I'm trying to manipulate there. We began a cooperative purchasing group, and here in the state of South Dakota, we haven't had any kind of cooperative purchasing until about 4 years ago, when several food service directors started talking about what this would be about, and what really is cooperative purchasing, and I'm going to clarify that here. You've gotten a little gist of it listening to James and Carol already, but cooperative purchasing is working together just to improve our services, our prices, our distributor relationships, And we can basically look at many like items, but still we can choose specific things that are very important, near and dear to our districts or our programs. Not every program is alike, and where one size chicken nugget or brand chicken nugget fits one program, it might not just necessarily fit the next one. So that's, the cooperative purchasing is saying we're going to agree to do something together, see what we can do to grow our programs, save on money, and do a number of different things there. I like the picture here where they're all standing around in a circle, should be holding hands, because in a way we really have bonded together in our group, and it'll be neat to see in the future as we hopefully see it do some growth there too. So I'm going to talk a little bit, why do you want a co-op or a buying group? And really the biggest thing for us, and I'm talking from a rural state compared to what you've already heard from with the other two, in the state of South Dakota, we don't have a lot of competition necessarily, many distributors that are looking for, that can reach out to all of us across the state. There's many miles and lots of distance that has to be covered, and then many small districts along the way. My school district happens to be the 5th. I think we got bumped to the 6th largest this year, and we're just under 4,000 students. So with that buying power, for those of you that are in that middle range and lower, you can see that you do need to rely on others who do have larger numbers, or you can combine your numbers together. So that buying power actually makes a difference in going to the distributor and saying, when you're doing some of the negotiations through your RFP or your bid process, putting in there what some of your specifications are, and saying we'll need one time a week delivery or 2 time a week delivery. And that buying power, it can bring product in that they would stock for you, which in many cases in our area, product is not stocked. Many items are special ordered, and so you have to wait sometimes or order things further out in advance. And so that buying power does help when you have the volume that is actually there. Reduced food cost. Who doesn't want to see reduced food cost? In all essence, I have to say that for my program, and I'm going to bring it up again here in just a few minutes too, the 4 years that we have been in our co-op or buying group, my food costs have not increased. And stop and think about how many of you have seen food costs increase in the last 4 years. 2 or 3 years ago, didn't we go through a major drought, and there were some big shortages there. And I'll share with you a few specific numbers in a few minutes about what really I'm seeing in my program over the last few years that I've been in this buying group, that where my food cost has gone down, and then now the last 2 years remain the same. When we talk about management wins, okay, we are in the business of school nutrition. That business means we have to feed our students. As James already said, we want to feed them what they're going to eat for participation numbers, but we also have to manage the programs. And I always liken my program, and I say this to my superintendent quite often, I am running mini franchises. I only have 7 schools, so I look at myself as having 7 little franchises or 7 little McDonald's programs that you have to look at each one individually. And you know that by having a buying group, having that co-op group in there, you are reducing your food costs. You are doing things that are better for your program. You're helping your students, and actually not only management wins, but the students win with you at the same time as management is winning. So really, how did it all begin for us? There had been a couple of directors, a very good friend of mine and she and I had been talking for a number of years saying, how could we ever get something like this going? And we were a distance of about 90 miles apart. And it's like, just don't know if we could pull this off. Another director that was new to the program in a district in between the two of us came on the scene, and all of a sudden we were all driving in a car one day to a meeting and started talking more and more about it. And we decided, we can be like-minded. We don't have to all agree on everything all at the same time. We can work together. We can come up with a means going to our districts and saying, if we can prove to you that we're going to save some money, how about letting us enter this partnership? Which we all 3 did. We got excited about this and started pulling together some ideas. Went to our separate administrations, and they're all looking at us like, you sure you want to relinquish some of your own decision making? But in the end, we all have still the same decision making we had before. but we agreed to partner with each other. Some things that are near and dear to me in a certain item, it's not going to change. This is what I'm going to spec, and I want to see that always there. And we have, competitive bids there that come in then. We agreed to look at some of the different things and what are we going to do? What are our specific roles? Okay, we were only 3 schools that started this in the beginning. And it's like, okay, we probably need to have an agreement, a contract, to make sure that, we're going into this knowing that nobody's going to back out on something just because they didn't like something happening. So we had signed agreements put into place that we would have specific roles. We have a lead school, one who contacts the distributors or pulls meetings together, pulls together our tasting sessions. One of our partners is really good at writing up specifications and doing the computer side of things. Another one is really good at looking at and analyzing the products for us. And just this last year, we have introduced another partner. We're into year 2 with another partner, so we're in 4 districts, and she happens to be a dietitian. So now we have a combination of all different roles where we can pull our own areas of expertise together and work together and talk about things. We meet together formally about 4 times a year just to talk about things. We do an audit on our distributor annually each year to make sure everything is following the RFP that we agreed on. We put together our specifications, and we put together a market basket and specify really spell out what the specifics are and what we need. Not everything is spelled out, but we also put in, and other items that we will be purchasing, what will that transpire into. We combine our solicitation into one large agreement. That one large agreement, though, is still all individually signed by each individual school district so they can honor that agreement in the end. But by saying, we're going to look at this and make a decision based on an all or nothing, we're going to combine our business and put it to that distributor so everybody can win and do some major planning going forward. So what were the results? The word amazing up there on the screen really says it all. In my district alone, as I already alluded to, we saved money. The first year, the way I calculate my meals and all my meal costs, I came back to my school district and said that I was saving 14 cents per student meal based on the food co-op and the agreement. The other thing that we came up with over the course of time, the following year it was another nickel in the district savings, and now for the last 2 years I have been sitting at the same per student food cost. Again, think back to some of the things we've seen in the past 3-4 years where we've seen food costs totally increase. And so that's been very huge, and it's helped save on the bottom line. Our distributor relationships, it's phenomenal because they know what we're going to be ordering. Obviously, we've worked with them and talked with them. We believe communication is a huge piece of that. We are able to agree to key drops if we want them, if that works in certain situations, which delivery days you've got, and then also they're more willing to bring in those items and stock them for you if they know that they've got volume instead of having to have you go through special order items. As far as customer satisfaction, we all know what it's like to be shorted product, not have the right brand that we wanted or what we expect. And when you have this relationship with your distributor and know that you've got things all happening and working towards one goal, it makes a difference. That customer satisfaction also rolls on down because here we are the ones that are purchasing the food, but the customer satisfaction ends up really where it really counts, and that's in the mouths of the kids. Our current status, we are in year 4, and with year 4 going on, we are only 4 school districts at this point in time. We kind of try and take it so we can make sure we're managing what we're doing. Our dream, eventually, as our administrations will allow it, is to probably increase and include more school districts so we can all benefit from this. At this point, I will take some questions if you would have any. And I do see one question here already asking, do I have a sample written procurement plan from my district to share? And this is something that obviously any RFP or bid that goes out, it's public knowledge, so those are some things that we could share and be willing to share with. Another question I'm seeing is this bid process where all bidders are welcomed and you go with the best prices. And we actually do an RFP, request for pricing, and all bidders are obviously welcomed because we have to allow competition and fair and equal competition. But we don't necessarily go in with low price. We state in what our specifications are. As far as price is a huge factor. It's about 51% of the scorecard we have, but we have 3 or 4 other things that we score things on. User ease of technology with the company, if you're into online ordering. As far as past history with the company, we look at some of the different variables that they can offer with added services. And so that is a really big thing for us there in working with that. I see one more question, and it says, do all 7 schools have exactly the same menu? And those 7 schools are the 7 in my district. I have 4 schools that have the same exact menu, and 3 of them actually do, I add extra things in there. We have multiple lines and all that. I did see one other question. Do you have to provide estimates for the distributor? We do, and we are very sticky about this with our group. It's like, if you're going to put in that you're going to want 100 cases of this, you better honor that or come very close, if not go over that. So we kind of hold each other accountable and make sure that we're doing that so we can keep things fair and, for the distributor, because if we overestimate and then don't make good on our word in that RFP, what are they going to do us in the bid price the next year or the quotes next year? And one last question I'll take, how do you handle adding new items that are not on your bid? And basically with that, we do have a line in our agreement stating what will we do with items that aren't on that master market basket. And so then there is a cost markup that the distributor takes, and we know exactly what each case is going to cost us over their landed costs. And that's all agreed on up front, and we can see that in any kind of audit we do. And I will take one more question because I did see one more that just popped in here. Do all school districts in the cooperative buying group have the same menu? No, we do not. We all have somewhat the same likes and dislikes with our programs that our kids have, but we do not share the same menus. We're all unique in our own ways. We're still very individualistic and proud of our own unique programs, and we want to keep it that way. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time, and I'm going to pass it over to Deborah and Jennifer.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jennifer Carlson, and I'm joined by my colleague, Deborah Eisenbarth, and we're both nutritionists with Child Nutrition Programs. And I also want to say thank you to our procurement subject matter experts, Courtney Howder and Sandra Voss. Thank you for joining us as well. So this afternoon we've heard a lot of great information and great best practices, particularly around sodium reduction in school meals. And we'd like to share some additional resources that we have available to you from USDA. FNS has created a collaborative sodium reduction initiative to foster creative ways to boost flavor and maximize taste. And this is to support efforts to lower sodium content in school meals and also just to maximize the flavor and taste. So we created the What Shaking, Creative Ways to Boost Flavor with Less Sodium Initiative, or What Shaking for short. So we have been partnering with about 40 national associations and organizations, including the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. And these organizations have joined USDA to share information, resources, and best practices for sodium reduction in school meals and beyond. Additionally, we've been working to engage with the food industry to identify ways to work together and to continue to support sodium reduction efforts. So as part of our What Shaking initiative, we've created a really nice website, and the URL is posted at the bottom of the slide, so please be sure to check it out. I will quickly take you through a tour of the website. So if you scroll down to the bottom of this web page, you'll see a variety of resources for several different audiences. Because as we know, it's not enough to just simply focus on schools. We need to engage the broader community. So you'll see that this website is laid out in sections, which pertain to specific audiences, including school nutrition professionals, school administrators, teachers, and staff, as well as parents and caregivers, and our students and youth. Additionally, there's also a section on sodium reports and research where you can find more information on the current scientific literature which speaks to sodium consumption among children. And lastly, let's take a minute to delve further into some of the resources that we have available just for school nutrition professionals. So from that home page we were just viewing, if you click on the resources for school nutrition professionals, it'll bring you to this webpage. And here you'll find a variety of relevant resources and handouts from both USDA and also our state agencies from across the nation. Examples of these resources include our What's Shaking infographic, which Deborah will talk a little bit more about, Wisconsin's Guide for Reducing Salt and Other Sodium-Containing Additives in School Meals, our Just the Facts handout on sodium, and many more resources. And if you continue to scroll down the page, you'll also find a myriad of resources specifically on menu planning and culinary techniques. You'll find links to a variety of healthy recipes, example menus, and many of these resources are ones that schools are actually using. So for example, this is where you'll find a link to Kansas Healthier Kansas menus. So simply click on this hyperlink, and you'll be taken directly to the Kansas State Department of Education's website. And on this site, you'll see 2 cycle menus. They meet Sodium 1 target for lunch, and you'll notice that they have also an 8-week cycle menu for lunch and a 6-week cycle menu for breakfast. So each of these resources also includes instructions, serving tips, and also production records and purchasing guides. This is a great place to start if you're looking for some more information. And now I will turn it over to Deborah, who will delve a little bit more into our infographic for school nutrition professionals.
Good afternoon, everyone. Going back to our What's Shaking homepage, you will also see a link under First Lady Michelle Obama's video to our What's Shaking infographic. Clicking on this link will take you to the infographic for school nutrition professionals. This colorful and appealing infographic is geared towards school nutrition professionals. It depicts the importance of sodium reduction and provides tips on reducing sodium content of school meals. We're going to briefly run through the best practices featured at the bottom of the infographic. The first tip is to use herbs and spices instead of salt, such as featuring flavor stations in your cafeteria where students can add seasonings that appeal to their taste. We encourage this because it provides flavor without all the sodium. Some flavor options include using herbs, spices, fresh salsas, and flavored vinegars, which can really provide loads of flavor without affecting the sodium content of a meal. We also encourage schools to evaluate how their existing recipes can be modified to be lower in sodium. There are many ways to do this, including reducing salt in recipes by half and conducting taste tests for acceptability, using low sodium broths and bases, and also using less or no salt when cooking pasta, rice, beans, and hot cereals. To go along with the tip of trying new recipes, we also encourage you to check out our What's Cooking USDA Mixing Bowl website. This website is a single source for all USDA F&S recipes, including those for home, known as household recipes, and those for schools and child care centers, known as large quantity recipes. This is where you find recipes for many of our nutrition initiatives, including school meals. Recipes are available in both English and Spanish. The site contains various USDA cookbooks, including a harvest of recipes with USDA foods and our popular Recipes for Healthy Kids cookbook. You can also create your own cookbook by collating recipes from throughout the site and printing them in one PDF. The third best practice we encourage is using USDA foods in school meals. USDA foods offer a variety of no salt added and lower sodium options to help schools prepare healthy meals and meet the sodium targets for breakfast and lunch. Lastly, we encourage you to stay in close contact with your food vendors. Having sodium information at your fingertips is essential to understanding where the sodium in your meals is coming from. School districts are working together to develop joint bid specifications, as mentioned earlier in the webinar, to increase the demand for lower sodium products. Also, one additional resource is this upcoming webinar that will be presented by Child Nutrition Programs. On February 2nd, FNS will host a webinar looking generally at procurement requirements found in 2 CFR 200, applicable program regulations, and published guidance. This will be the starting point for future in-depth webinars reviewing and discussing specific procurement requirements. The target audience for this webinar are state agencies and program operators. Once you register, you will receive a confirmation message containing information about joining the webinar. This wraps up our presentation. Thank you for your time today. We will now take your questions. Hello, everyone. We received a question on the webinar and to provide the link for that webinar, and we'll go right back to that. And also, we want to point out that this webinar will be available to review and listen to, and the slides will be available after the webinar. So the link will be provided then as well. Yeah, so just to clarify what Deborah was saying, we've had a lot of questions around the availability of these slides. So Liz, at the beginning of the presentation, shared the ICN Team Up landing page, and so you'll have access to the webinar and the slides from the Team Up landing page. So be sure to check that out for more information on our resources and links to our websites and upcoming webinars. So I think at this point, we'll turn it back over to you, Liz, to close us out.
All right, thanks, Jennifer and Deborah. Get my slides going. All right, thanks to all of our panelists today. And before we wrap up the webinar, I just have a few brief announcements. We have completed Team Up workshops in all 7 USDA regions and have moved into the expansion of the project. The next phase of Team Up for School Nutrition Success has involved training additional mentors, which we completed in October here at the Institute. Training has also been completed for over 75 state agency personnel so that Team Up can continue throughout the states. And this phase is well on its way. Utah will be hosting its statewide Team Up workshop on February 3rd and 4th, and other states are in the process of planning events. Please remember that all of the webinars are recorded and can be viewed on the Team Up for School Nutrition Success website at www.theicn.org/teamup. I would also like to ask you to join the Institute of Child Nutrition at our virtual booth, number 29A, during the CSI Food Pro Expo, February 1st through the 12th. You'll have 24-hour access to exhibits during this virtual trade show designed for school nutrition professionals. ICN's booth will feature free resources that can help your staff meet the professional standards regulations. This concludes the webinar, and thanks again for participating, and have a great day.